Over the next 15 days, the atmosphere is setting up for a pattern we don't see very often, and it could bring multiple high-impact weather events across the United States. I've been tracking the models closely, and what's developing has all the ingredients for some really significant weather. Let me walk you through exactly what's happening and what you need to watch for, because this is going to get interesting. We've got a cold air mass parked over the eastern United States right now, and it's sticking around through the weekend. Temperatures in the teens across the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. Saturday's going to be cold. Sunday might be even colder in some spots. This is legitimate winter cold, but what makes this noteworthy is the pattern shift that's coming and how everything's going to evolve from here. Something interesting happened yesterday that's worth mentioning. Snow showers moved through Virginia, and forecasts were calling for maybe a dusting. Central Virginia ended up with closer to 1.5 inches in some spots. Southeastern Virginia also picked up unexpected accumulation. These systems can overperform when all the ingredients line up just right, and we've got several opportunities for snow over the next 2 weeks where this could happen again. Around February 10th, we're expecting a warm-up to move into the eastern states. The pattern flips, the trough shifts westward. We build a ridge over the central and eastern U.S. This taps into Gulf moisture, and temperatures are going to climb pretty notably. We could even see thunderstorm activity, which would be unusual for early February, but it happens when warm, humid air masses move north. By Wednesday the 11th, this warmer air pushes deeper into the south and lower Midwest, and the atmosphere gets primed for active weather. Here's where things get interesting. This warm-up looks fairly brief, maybe lasting just a few days before we transition back to colder conditions. Both major models are showing a potential return of Arctic air that could arrive by the middle of the month and stick around for an extended period. We get this taste of spring, and then winter comes back with authority. These temperature swings actually help drive storm development because you get strong temperature gradients, and the atmosphere responds by trying to balance things out through storm systems. Let me talk about what's happening out west, because it matters for understanding the overall pattern. The mountainous west has had a quieter winter than usual, and that's significant because these areas depend on winter snowpack for their annual water supply. Snow builds up through winter, then melts gradually through spring and summer, feeding rivers and reservoirs. When snowpack runs below average, it creates water supply concerns, especially if the following summer is hot and dry. The pattern looks like it's turning more active for the western states starting around mid-February. Both the European and American models are showing multiple storm systems moving through the central Rockies and northern plains, bringing beneficial snowfall. When both models agree on something in the 10 to 15-day range, it gives us more confidence this is a real signal. The West is going to see several rounds of snow, which is exactly what they need. That western trough is important because it steers storm systems across the rest of the country, and this is where things get active for the plains, Midwest, and East. Around February 12th going into the 13th, there's a system developing that tracks further north than most storms we've seen lately. Instead of being a southern slider that stays across the deep south, this one cuts across the plains and Midwest before moving into the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic. These northern tracking systems tend to impact larger population centers, so we're watching this closely. What makes this setup particularly interesting is a secondary feature trying to develop along the coast. If a coastal low can get going, we could be looking at a nor'easter situation for parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. We're talking about 8 days out, so specifics will definitely change, but the overall pattern supports storm development in this time frame. The models have shown this feature consistently over the last few runs, which suggests there's a legitimate signal here. These coastal systems can produce significant snowfall when everything comes together. The other thing I'm watching is what happens around February 17th, because there's a classic setup developing. Trough in the west, ridge building in the east, moisture streaming up from the Gulf. This is the textbook pattern for major winter storms across the plains and upper Midwest. When Gulf moisture feeds into a developing system as it tracks north, you can see really impressive snowfall totals. These setups produce the biggest winter storms for the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin. We're looking pretty far out, but the pattern is there and worth keeping an eye on. There's a severe weather component to watch with this setup. When strong storm systems move into areas that are abnormally warm and humid, you create conditions favorable for thunderstorms and potentially severe weather. The models are hinting at a multi-day period starting around the 17th, where we could see repeated rounds of thunderstorms across parts of the South and lower Midwest. Severe weather in February isn't super common, but it happens and can catch people off guard because most aren't thinking about that threat in winter. After all that activity, the pattern could turn quite cold again for the eastern states. We're seeing signals for another push of Arctic air that could arrive in the latter part of February. The models have been trending a bit colder with this feature. When Arctic air moves in behind active weather, you often see storm systems develop along that temperature boundary. Both models are showing hints of this, so we'll need to monitor as we get closer. Let me walk you through the temperature evolution because it's pretty wild. Through this weekend, we stay cold in the east. Monday the 9th, the cold is still around but takes a small step back. By Tuesday the 10th, the warmth starts to win out and we're going to see a significant temperature rise. Some areas could see temperatures 20 to 30 degrees warmer than right now. That's going to feel like a completely different season. Then by around Sunday the 15th, another shot of cold air moves in and temperatures drop back down. We get another brief warm-up around the 17th through 19th and then potentially another cold blast after that. Back and forth between cold and warm, which is classic for late winter. These temperature swings are what meteorologists look for when identifying active weather patterns. When you've got cold air on one side and warm air on the other constantly battling, that's when storm systems develop along the boundaries. Basic atmospheric dynamics, but the scale of what we're looking at here is notable. Both models are showing persistent moisture flow from the Gulf northward over the next 2 weeks, which combined with these temperature boundaries sets up multiple opportunities for precipitation events. The European model is showing some impressive snowfall totals when you add everything up over the 2-week period. Parts of the mid-Atlantic could see 15 to 20 inches or more from multiple events. That's not all at once. It comes in waves where each system drops several inches, things get cleared, then another system moves through. The American model is showing less snow overall, but still indicates multiple events for the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. The Western Mountains are going to see frequent snow on both models, which is beneficial for snowpack. What's noteworthy is the consistency we're seeing across multiple model runs and forecasting systems. Usually when we're looking 10 to 15 days out, there's a lot of run-to-run variability. A storm appears, then disappears, then reappears in a different location. But this pattern has been fairly stable, showing the same general features day after day. That consistency gives us more confidence the overall pattern is real, even if specific details of individual systems will change as we get closer. For the northern plains and upper Midwest, that potential storm around the 17th is something to watch because if it develops as modeled, it could be significant. The combination of heavy snow and strong winds can create blizzard conditions, and these late winter storms can be particularly impactful. Travel can become extremely difficult. We're still far enough out that this could shift, but the pattern certainly supports development. The nor'easter threat for next weekend is worth monitoring closely. If that coastal low can develop and intensify, we could see significant snowfall for parts of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. These systems can sometimes stall and produce heavy snow for extended periods. The models have shown this feature for several days now, which is encouraging from a forecast confidence standpoint. Over the next few days, we should get a better handle on whether this system is going to come together. For areas that might see severe weather during the warm periods, it's important to stay weather aware even though it's still winter. Have multiple ways to receive warnings and know where your safe place is. February tornadoes can be just as strong as spring tornadoes, but people often aren't thinking about that threat this time of year. If we do see severe weather develop, it could affect areas from Texas up through the Tennessee Valley. I want to emphasize that long-range forecasting has limitations. The further out we go, the less certain we can be about specific details like exact storm tracks, timing, and snowfall amounts. What we can say with more confidence is the overall pattern supports active weather over the next 2 weeks. There will be multiple systems, temperature swings, and opportunities for impactful weather across different parts of the country. As we get closer to each individual event, we'll be able to nail down specifics with much more accuracy. The western snowfall is something water managers out there are going to be happy to see. After a somewhat slow start to winter, getting several weeks of active weather is exactly what's needed. These storms moving through don't just benefit the immediate areas they hit. They help set up the water supply situation for the entire region heading into spring and summer. Heavy snow in the mountains can make travel difficult, but it's serving a really important purpose. If you're in any of the areas we've talked about, it's worth staying updated on the forecast over the next 2 weeks. We've got that warm-up coming first, which will be nice but brief. Then multiple storm chances, with some potentially being significant. And another round of cold air that could be pretty intense later in the month. Having supplies on hand is always good practice during winter. Make sure you've got what you need in case weather impacts your area. The pattern we're looking at is fairly complex with a lot of moving pieces. There's the western trough driving beneficial snowfall for the mountains. Temperature swings in the east creating storm development opportunities. Gulf moisture feeding several systems. And potential for everything from heavy snow to severe thunderstorms depending on where you are and timing of individual systems. It's an active setup and one worth paying attention to. Over the next few days, I'll be tracking how the models evolve, and we should start to get better clarity on that nor'easter potential for next weekend. That's the next big thing to watch in the short term. Beyond that, we'll monitor the plain storm potential and the severe weather threat that could develop. And then watching that Arctic air that could move in later in the month. Each of these features represents a potentially high-impact event for different parts of the country. The consistency across the models is what stands out about this pattern. When you see multiple forecasting systems from different countries all showing similar features over multiple days, that tells us we're probably onto something real. The atmosphere is setting up in a way that supports active weather, and we're going to see that play out over the coming weeks. Exactly how each system develops and where it tracks will become clearer as we get closer, but the overall pattern is there. Active pattern ahead with multiple opportunities for significant weather. Temperature roller coaster in the east with cold now, brief warmth next week, then potentially more cold later in the month. Storm chances for multiple regions with some potentially being high-impact events. Beneficial snowfall returning to the west. Make sure you're checking your local forecast regularly because things can change quickly with patterns like this. We'll keep tracking it and I'll have more updates for you tomorrow. Stay safe out there.